Hello, Game Heller here, Jihuan Zoran on YouTube and Hana Couch on Twitch, and something new has come in the mail from eBay. This was 25 bucks. It was actually 10 bucks and 15 bucks shipping. Kind of old-fashioned, somebody not offering free shipping and charging the amount for the main thing, but we'll see what we got here. I know what I ordered, but we'll see what actually arrived. It was tracked and insured. That may be why it cost $15. Oh look, cat. You can't see the cat, he's over there. It is wrapped up in brown paper. And it is in a fancy Ziploc bag. Made by WYSE. Let's see if I was wise to buy it. And here we are. What kind of a device is this? If you've worked in a point of sale business, you might have seen something like this before. The main thing is it comes with a power supply. Let's make sure it's the right power supply, since this doesn't seem to actually be the one I thought I was ordering. I thought I was getting an actual WinTerm. This does not say WinTerm on it anywhere. Well, I don't know if we'll actually be able to do anything with this tonight. I may not have prepared the right stuff. Okay, so this says, caution, risk of electric shock, dry location use only. On the other side it says, input 120 volts AC, output 12 volts DC to 100 milliamps. Okay, alright then, let's see what it is. 12 volts, is correct. So at least the voltage is right. But is 200 milliamps really going to power this? I have my doubts. Now, I was looking at auctions for ones that did look more like this. They were going for a lot more than $10. So maybe I can sell this on eBay myself and use the money to buy what I actually wanted. In the meantime, let's hook it up and see what it does. Okay, I've got a power cord here. Plug that in. Plug in the power supply. Is there even a switch? Yes, there's a switch. Nothing. Nothing at all. Well, can't say I'm surprised. Does not say how much it requires beyond the 12 volts. This is supposed to be a box full of power supplies. Of course, now it has a bunch of random other stuff in it. Not sure how that happened. Headphones. That keeps falling off. Not sure if this is the box of ones that work, or the ones that didn't work. Oh, I see. This is actually the box of headphones. Great. This is the actual box of adapters. Cool. So all of these should be in here. Unless, of course, these are the ones that don't work. You have had your end cut off. You are 12 volts, 9-1.833 amps. Well, that's more amps. Let's see if that works. Oh my god, the light came on briefly. Okay, we have something that will run it. Since this is not the one I was looking for, I'm not going to bother hooking up my capture card. I just need to find a VGA cable. Hello, dishwasher. Dishwasher wants to get in on the action. Dishwasher, you had your video. Okay, here we are. We have this. Giant bag of rice is falling over and scaring the cats. Plugs into here. I just accidentally unplugged the power cord, so we're going to have to plug that in again. Like so. Oh, it remembered that it was on. No signal. D-sub is connected. Click OK to automatically switch to D-sub input. Where's OK? OK. OK. Where's the OK button? There's the buttons here. There's the button. Input. D-sub. Boy, this is weird. Are we getting anything? No signal. Entering power saving mode shortly. We're on D-sub. Nothing's coming out though. Power just went out. Oh! Haha! Things are happening! System information! Auto configuration. That's okay. I don't think this one can do that. Not show this message again. Maybe I want to have it show it again. Waiting for Ethernet link. Okay. We have a mouse. Oh, careful. We have a mouse. Let's hook up the mouse. All right, it recognizes the mouse. So what this is a thin client. I was hoping for one that wouldn't have Windows installed on it at all. Or if it did, that I'd be able to fool it into doing something else. But as you can see, this has some version of Windows installed. Currently it's waiting for an Ethernet link, and there is no Ethernet link. Can I click anywhere else? Does the keyboard work? Yes, Alt-G, General. Okay, we have some information here which may prove useful in the future. D, devices. We've got a 365 megahertz CPU, 233 megahertz memory, no NAND, one serial port. Okay. Alt-C, copy. Hello. Oh, eventually it came up. What can we do? We can maybe do things. I'm not sure that the mouse is working properly. I don't think it's actually letting me click on anything. Options, maybe? Nope, that's not it. Cancel? Yep. Mouse clicking is not working. Options? I thought it was going to be Alt-T. OPT. There we go. Yeah, if there's a way to set this up to use the serial port, which is what I wanted to, it's going to be hard to find. I may mess with this for a bit, and I'll get back to you if I find something cool. Well, I've made some progress. The Windows 7 install DVD boots off of USB. I don't think there's any devices for it to be installed to. Certainly none that can hold it. But let's see how far we get. Windows failed to start. Recent hardware or software change might be the cause. Okay. We don't get very far. RAM disk device creation failed due to insufficient memory. Yeah, it's not going to run Windows 7. But you can totally boot it off a DVD drive, external DVD or CD-ROM drive, and I'm going to show you how here. Let's see here. Enter to continue. Is that going to reboot? No, it takes us back to here. Okay, so, tab menu. What does that do? Probably nothing now that I've taken the disk out. Okay, so this is the pile of disks that boot. Most of the Linux ones get as far as the ISO Linux loader and then die as far as I can tell, though I haven't left it there for long enough to be absolutely certain. But I can boot into Windows. Well, this one, I think this one doesn't really boot. But I can boot into Windows 98 setup, which gets me to a DOS prompt. So that's cool. So I'm guessing since these are well, let me demonstrate. There's one I haven't tried yet. It's Ubuntu 18. Ubuntu 18, oh, this is 2. Now, I don't think Ubuntu 18 or 16 are going to work. I think they both have the ISO loader. But they should still be in this pile. Okay. So, let's reboot. Can we reboot? Control delete? Yes, totally. It's a PC. It's this little tiny little PC. Now, normally when you reboot... Oh, that's new. I've never actually seen that screen show up. There we go. Okay, let's boot from CD-ROM since there is no hard disk, as far as I can tell. There might be an internal hard disk, but we don't have access to that. Yeah, so let's start it without CD-ROM support because I've tried it with CD-ROM support and it doesn't find this particular CD-ROM. And here we are. So that's kind of cool. I could even load the Windows ME setup and also certain varieties of Linux that were quite old enough. SUSE 10.1 live CD booted, and so did Red Hat 7.1 disk 1. Anything more recent than that, it hangs when you boot. But that's a good sign. That means, since this is, I believe, a floppy disk that is mounted on the CD as a boot disk, I believe that means that I can do the same thing with a floppy disk with whatever I want on it, including a terminal program, which might be able to talk to the serial port. So, that's the next thing. Oh, and just for fun, I'm going to show you what happens when I boot SUSE. So I've got the SUSE disk in there, and hopefully it'll just boot. Yeah, there it is, SUSE Linux 10.1. But if we try and use it, I think the mouse works. No, the mouse does not. Okay, so if we try to boot with GNOME, it says, ha, live CD with GNOME needs at least 512 megs. So I'm guessing we don't have that much memory, or it just can't find it. But let me just show you what happens when you try to boot from the disk. Now watch, it won't do it. Hello? I don't know what it's doing. Looks like it's actually off. Okay. So what happens if we try and boot with no CD in? Yeah, it brings this up. And you don't want this, because you can't get out of this. So then I press this button, which should just reset it at this point, and I hold down delete. There we go. And now we're in setup, just like in a basic PC, except it's a very small setup. You don't have a lot of choices here. The password you need to know, and by default it is FirePort, F-I-R-E-P-O-R-T with a capital F. So FirePort. And we're in. You set the password to something else, or maybe to nothing. I haven't tried that. I don't want to mess things up. I've got it working well enough. Okay, so then this boot order configuration was originally set to none. So I had to change it. I don't know what happens when I try and boot to IDE or PXE, but USB allows me to boot off of the drive hooked up to the USB. And sometimes you have to just get into the startup menu in order for it to boot, like the setup menu. If you haven't typed the password in yet, it may not believe that you're allowed to boot. So, make sure you get in here, or maybe set the password to nothing. Not sure, but you may have to actually get into the BIOS to get it to boot. But here we go. Save values and exit. And we're back in Susan. Isn't that hilarious? Okay, maybe I'll try and make my own boot CD and put some fun stuff on it. We'll see. Wish me luck.
So it's a couple days later. I spent a lot of time investigating this, and I'll try and show you what I found out without going into too much detail. I was like, can we get it to boot other stuff and like run DOS programs and things like that? Because then maybe I can use it for what I bought it for, which was to interface to serial devices that have an embedded system. It's got a serial port on it. If I can access that serial port from DOS, then I can use a terminal program, like for instance, Link, LYNC. That's the one I always used when I was a kid, so I'm most familiar with it, and that's probably the one I'm going to try. I know that there's a way to make bootable CDs from floppy drive images, but I don't have a working floppy drive. But I do have that Windows 98 installation CD. I figured that the image of that floppy that it boots off of virtually must be on there somewhere. So I brought up ImageBurn, and I was able to create an image file from the disk. Okay, so then I looked up that image file in HXD. There it is. Now, it's obviously not at the beginning, so I had to search for it, and I figured it would contain the signature that you find at the beginning of a floppy disk, which is FAT12. So I searched for FAT12, and there it is. This looks like the beginning of a disk there, MS-Win 4.1. That's where it would normally have the name of the operating system. So I figured the disk starts here at location A800, hex A800. So then I went to select it, edit. There we go, select block, ta-da, and how long is it? Well, let's bring up a calculator. You want to go into programmer mode, 1440 times 1024. There we go, and in hex that's 168000. So we type that in here, and there we have what looks like the end of the drive image. But after it, you can see it looks like important stuff. It looks like a directory listing. So I think we're going to be limited to 1440K here until I find a better way to do this. But I can save this image. And since I wanted to put link on this image, if nothing else, I saved it as link.img. I was then able to open this image in Power ISO. There we go. This is what I've done with the image. I've removed a lot of what was on it, and I've replaced it with things that I found on old hard drives that might work on an older PC. Some of these are games that I wrote. There's some image files. There's some image file viewers. There's pkzip and pkunzip, things of that kind. Now, I know there are various utilities that allow you to create bootable CDs from floppy drive images, but all the ones that I found documentation about are old and don't work on this machine anymore. We're talking about Nero burning ROM or Roxio, things like that. And as far as I could tell, there was no option in either Power ISO or in ImageBurn to just make a CD ISO that you could burn directly from a floppy drive image. However, I still had the Windows 98 ISO. So I went back to HXD and I just loaded up the image that I had made, link.img. There it is. And I just selected it all with Control A and hit Control C to copy it. Then went back to the Win98 ISO and went to, with Control G to go to A800 where I'd gone before. There's the beginning of it, and then I just pasted it in there with paste right. And then I saved it, and then I burned that image to a CD. So yeah, it's a pretty long CD. It's got, you know, all of Windows 98 second edition installation files on it, in addition to my little, 1.44 meg floppy drive image. But it worked. And then I tried to hook it up to my capture device. What I discovered is that my capture device doesn't support 400 lines of resolution. It'll do 480p, but it won't do 400p. And that's what all the text modes are. And I really wanted to capture some of the output of this, not just like show you a film of my projector. So I was like, how can I fix that? And I was like, oh, wait a minute, DOS kind of works in other video modes. So what I did is I put a program called vMode on it. And yeah, I ran it. You didn't see me do it because I couldn't capture it until I had done it. But what I did was I typed vMode 18. Now, vMode is a program, I believe I wrote it. I have the assembly language code for it. So I think I wrote it. If I didn't write it, I wrote a similar program at some point. But I can show you what the code for it is in case you want to use it, in case you want to capture text mode stuff from this device. Notice I don't have a cursor. That's because we're really in a graphics mode. We're in 640 by 482 color mode. But debug runs fine from here, and debug's on the disk. So I can type debug vmode.com and U for unassemble, and you can see the code that it uses. I believe what it does first is it's getting information from where DOS stores the command line options that you typed in, and then it's converting them from decimal characters to hexadecimal. That's what I believe is in AL. Yeah, by the time we're done with the loop, and that's at location 011A. When it sets AH to 0, which is the subfunction of interrupt 10 that changes the video mode, and then we call interrupt 10, and then we call interrupt 20 to end the program. So that's vMode. It's a very simple little program and simply allows you to set the video mode. So that is good. Yay. And with that, we can run a number of programs. We can run Esther, which is another program I put on here, which should allow most of the directory of this floppy to appear on the screen at once. Nice. We could run mem, and it will tell us about the memory. Cool. We could run PC Kermit. This is a program that allows us to send things via the Kermit protocol over the serial port. I thought that might be a useful thing to run, but we can't run link. It immediately screws up the screen mode. So if I want to capture the moment when I first, use link, I'm not going to be able to do it. You can run popdir and pushdir. These are just little utilities that I got my hands on. Pushdir will take the current directory and push it onto a stack. And then, after you've done your batch file or whatever, then you run popdir, and it pops that directory back off the stack and immediately takes you back to whatever directory you were in. So if you want to run a batch file that needs to go change directories and always end up somehow back in the directory it started, pushdir and popdir are really nice for that. You could run spit. It's a diskette imaging software that I wrote a long time ago. And so, for instance, the A drive is a floppy drive. And the C drive here is a RAM drive that I set up in configsys. So let me show you that. They're under no CD. Device equals ramdrive.sys4096/E. That works on this machine. So that's what I've been using for my RAM drive. We can run spit to make an image of that disk. For instance. And there we have it. And if it's taking up too much space, we can use pkzip to make it into a zip file. It's a pretty fast machine, this one. So cool for a DOS machine. And we can even run fcomp here. If we what I wrote fcomp to be is I wrote it to be a file compare program that returns an error level, so you can use it in batch files. You can write a batch file that compares two files to see if they're the same. So if we rename image.img image.back and then pk unzip image.zip, we can now fcomp to see if they're the same. Make sure that pkzip is working properly. They seem to be the same, but just to check, make sure fcomp is working properly, let's compare it like this. They're different. Cool. But there's a lot of other stuff on the disk we can't run, at least not encapture it. It occurred to me, so a VGA card can obviously output 480p. Why can't it do it in text mode? I mean, there is no built-in mode that can do it, but why not try anyway? There's a bunch of registers that VGA uses to control how it runs the output. Maybe by messing with those registers, I can create it would be 720 by 480 text mode that has 30 lines like this one does, except it's a real text mode and you can run programs in it as long as they don't change the mode, as long as they just look at the mode and use it, then you should be able to run a lot of different programs in it. And so I spent a while doing that. So here's a little file that I created. It just keeps track of the VGA registers, CRTC registers, I believe these are. Those are the ones that control the CRT output. And I compared and contrasted them between 80 column 25 line text mode and 640 by 482 color mode. And then I figured out which ones were probably the ones that I needed to change and which ones were probably the ones I needed to leave alone. And after a couple tries, I got it to work. So now I have a program called 30lines.com. And I'll show it to you now. Basically, all it does is write a bunch of stuff to a bunch of ports. The way the VGA registers work is that there's one address, 3D4, that you write to tell it what register you want to read or write. And then you read the contents from 3D5, or you write contents to 3D5 to change that register. Now, for some VGA cards, this may be 384 and 385 instead. No, or 3B4 and 3B5 instead. Something like that. But through trial and error, I found out that on this machine, it's 3D4. So I can't guarantee that this program will work for any VGA card. But I don't know. So if you really want, to have a 30-line text mode on some other card, then I guess you might have to futz with it a little bit. But I just wanted to get something so that I could get capture working. So yeah, first AL is being set to the register. We have to write to AL 11, sorry, which would be, it's 17 decimal, it's 11 hex. We have to write to that one first because there's a protection bit in that one that keeps you from writing to a couple of the other ones that we need to also write to. And we write, 0B to 11, and we write to 6, and we write 0B to 6 as well. Interesting, I didn't realize that. And then we write to 7, and we write 3E to 7, and then we write to 10, and to that we write E9. And just continue on here. We write to 12, we write DF to 12, we write to 15, and we write E7 to that. And we write to 16, and we write 04 to that. And then there's a memory location, 0000 colon 0484, so it's 484 hex, that stores how many lines DOS thinks are on the screen. Because at this point, we've got a 30-line mode, but DOS isn't using all of those lines. So that's what this is for here, this last bit. We change our data segment to 0, in case it isn't already 0. And then at 484, we store 1D. And then we call it 20 to end the program. And then it's done. So let me now show you 30 lines in operation. Normally, I would type mode CO80, and then you won't be able to see what it's at because it's suddenly running at 400 scan lines instead of 480. But if I then run 30 lines next, the display comes back. You can see that I ran 30 lines there, and now I'm capturing again. Yay! Only now I'm in a text mode. The text is gray, and I can run all kinds of programs now. So, for instance, if I wanted to include ANSI, I've got a program called device.com. which allows me to load sys drivers after config sys. So if I type device ANSI.sys, now it has loaded the ANSI driver, and I can do things like $E bracket 35M $P $E bracket 0 semicolon 1M $G $E bracket 0 M. Let's see if I did that right. Yes, and now the prompt has color to it. Cool. So I'm using ANSI codes now. Fun. Yes, I can run list. So let's list autoexec.bat. Ta-da! And you can see that at the top of autoexec.bat, I've added something that runs 30 lines right away when I boot the thing. So cool. I only wish I could run it sooner so that I could see what the config sys is doing. But yeah, there we go. That's all. That's the only change I made to autoexec.bat. Let's see what else is on the disk. You'll notice that there's a basic program, and also I've got basic A. Now, when I run that, it's immediately going to change the screen mode again. But what I can do, you won't see me do it, but I can type shell space quote 30 lines unquote. Maybe I did it wrong. Nope, there we go. So now you can see what I typed, and I'm running basic, and I can load basic programs. Like I can load the only one that's on the disk. Now this program uses a different graphics mode, but wait. See, one of the things about the 30-line program that you may have noticed that you may not think is a good idea is that it doesn't change the graphics mode to text mode before it starts. But it turns out this is an advantage because we can use it in other graphics modes, and they also get converted to 640 by 480, even if they were originally 640 by 400 or 200. So let's list this program, find where it goes into graphics mode. There we go, width 40, screen 2. So if we just add to this line, shell 30 lines, then we can run this basic program in another graphics mode. And there we are. Now you notice there's a little screen repetition at the bottom, but the point is my capture card is capturing it now, which I couldn't do before. So hooray. So while I'm playing this game, I should probably talk about something else that happened. I have had some problems using PowerISO on that image that I got off of the Win98 installation CD. I think perhaps there's something special about that image that makes it not completely 100% what PowerISO is used to dealing with. And I was getting a lot of crashes with PowerISO. I would drag some files into the image, delete some other programs that didn't work last time, and PowerISO would just quit. It would just absolutely crash. And eventually I got to the point where I couldn't do anything more with the image with PowerISO. And at that point, that's why there are some programs in this directory that still don't work, because I haven't been able to remove them and put other things in their place. I was able to make a few small changes to some programs to make them work, but I was using hex editors to edit the disk image directly at that point. In which case, creating new files, deleting old files becomes a real pain. You have to edit the directory system. You may have to edit the file allocation table. It's all a big headache. So now I'm not sure what the next step is for the computer. I'll show you what all I can do with it. But there's now two things you can do with it. You can run old DOS programs quite effectively as long as they fit on a floppy. And two, if I can get it to work, I can use it as a terminal to talk to serial devices. As a PC, I'm not sure what the next step is. I remember back in the day, I once had some program, I don't think I have it anymore, that actually would allow you to image a hard drive and burn it to a CD. Of course, the hard drive would have to be, the size of a CD. And also, I'd prefer to boot off a USB jump drive, except at the moment I don't really have any empty ones. I know you can't install more recent versions of Windows to jump drives directly, but you can install them if you'd like. Take a hard drive, internal hard drive, and install it to that, and then like make an image of that hard drive that fits on a jump drive. Then maybe you can boot from the jump drive. But I haven't even tried that with my Atari VCS yet. It's also be a different operating system. It wouldn't be Windows 10, it'd be Windows 98. I don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to be able to do with it and what I should try next. So you let me know in the comments what you think I ought to try and do next with it. Okay, that's fun. I think we've done all the fun things there are to do in this game, so I'll just... I've had problems putting this game early. There might be a key that does it, but I don't remember what it is. So I'm just going to move my paddle to the corner here and wait to die. There we go. Game is over. Device I/O error in 510 because I forgot to copy this to the RAM drive where it could actually create a high scores file. So now another thing we might want to do in BASIC is make a program that can set this all up for us. So let's write a program. First thing we'd want this program to do is shell and run 30 lines. Then it would be really nice. Oh, sorry. There we go. Well, here's key list. There we go. Right now, F10 is set to return us to screen 000, which my capture card can't handle. So that's bad. Let's reset it to do something different. So we will set it to 20 key 10 comma quote, and we'll set it to run 30 lines. You have to put the quote in as a character because you can't put a quote inside a string easily in BASIC. And then we have to put return on the end of it. Okay. And then I think we don't want to have this program in memory sticking around so that we don't accidentally use it. So we'll make 30 new, and if we list it, that's what it looks like right now. Cool. And then we want to save it because it's going to delete itself as soon as we run it. So we want to save it as a text file in case we need to edit it. So I'm going to use list. Sorry. There we go. And we'll call it 30.bas. We have to put it on C colon. Can't write to the floppy drive. It's the CD drive. Okay. Okay. I think that worked. Let's run it. Okay, it's run. Let's list the keys. There we go. F10 has been set to shell 30 lines. So now we can do stuff like screen 0 colon and then hit F10. And here we are in text mode. No program in memory, mind you, but if we did load, there's a program. Cool. Okay. And what's more, when we return to the system, it remembers. It even remembers my colors for my prompt. And we can do things like basic A 30.bas. I guess it's going to be in C, so let's just go to C. Now it won't remember this. Next time we reboot, we'll have to write this program over again. And to be fair, I've written this program before because I found it very useful. We can do this. And here we are in basic in 30-line mode. Ta-da! Cool. Okay, and now we have all the functionality of BASIC at our fingertips on our WYSE WinTerm that's not really a WinTerm. Okay, what else can we do? Yep. I found a program called Birthday, and it works because it runs in 640 by 480 16 color mode. I have no idea where I got this. I'm sure I didn't write it.
Probably I downloaded it with some demos or something. It kind of looks like the kind of thing that people who write demos do. As soon as I exit it, I'm going to have to run 30 lines again because it dumps you back into normal. Yeah, exactly. So what else can we do? Do4 is a utility. It's not terribly useful. There we go. This is what it does. And not useful in this context, but if you have a bunch of files listed in a file and you want to run a command for each of those files, that's what it is. There's edit, and we can use edit. And it stays in 30-line mode. That's so excellent. That's a whole lot of utility there. It's much easier to edit basic programs, especially long ones in there, as long as you've saved them as text files with list. Fdisk, it turns out, there's two problems with it. First thing is that it immediately goes into 25-line mode. And the second is that as soon as I type 30 lines, you'll see that it doesn't detect any hard disks. Now, that's interesting because the BIOS says you can boot to IDE, and I don't know if that's like the internal memory or something. I don't know. And maybe I could install Windows to the internal memory, like Windows 98, or maybe this just whatever version of DOS this is. It's Windows 98 DOS, obviously, because it's the Windows 98 installation disk. Maybe there would be a way to do that, but I'm not sure what it is, and obviously then I'd overwrite the software that's on it, and it would no longer be potentially usable as a WinTerm anymore. Gwish is a GIF viewer that I wrote. So let's. The reason I wrote all this software is because I had no money. My parents gave me an allowance of $0.25 a week, and at that rate, I couldn't even afford shareware. So I wrote a lot of programs when I was, in my teens. Oh yeah, let's bring over the GIF files too. So those are two smallish GIF files that I figured would fit on the disk without taking up too much space and allow me to test this program. So first we have to run gwishc to configure it, and unfortunately, I was not able to get it to stop changing into text mode, so I'm going to have to do a lot of this blind, but once it displays the GIFs, those will be in 640 by 480 mode if I choose it. I'll have to do it blind, though, so you won't really see any of this, unfortunately, and I won't either. But I've got to run the configuration program first. I think I hit 7, and then Y, and then C. It should beep. There we go, it beeps, which means that it should now know all the modes. And if I hit escape, I should be able to type 30 lines and get back so I can see what's going on here. You can see we now have a file called gwish.cfg. Yes, there it is, and we can look at it with list. There it is, and this should be a list of all the modes that the card supports. We're going to try a couple of modes that I think I know where they are. I don't remember what it's called. There, Gwish Mountain 2.gif. I believe if I hit the down arrow twice, I'll be in 640 by 480 two-color mode. There we go. Ta-da. And if I go back and hit the down key 9 times, I'll be in 640 by 480 16-color mode. And there we go. I think there are also some 256 color modes that work with my GIF viewing program, but I'm not going to mess with them now. Okay, and we're back. Cool. What else is on this disk? LZEXE is a program that allows you to compress executables, and I've run it on most of these executables to fit them on the disk, even though I can't run it on my Windows 10 PC. The code is far too old. But we can run it on, I don't believe I've ever run it on the gwish.exe program. That's why it's so big. So let's LZEXE gwish.exe. It's a French program. Don't know what most of these things do, but I know what the result is, which is that the 78K program is now 21K. And I think it will still work. look at the other file. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there we go. There's the other GIF file. So that's cool. There's also a program called LZW, which I wrote. So once I'd written a GIF viewing program, I have LZW code. Maybe I can use LZW code to compress other files, and then maybe I don't need to use PKZip and feel bad for not having the money to pay for it. And so let's try it out on the old one. Not very fast compared with PKZip. And this is a pretty fast computer, and it still runs pretty slow. It took the 78K file down to 30K. It's not as good as LZEXE, but also I wrote it so I don't have to pay for it. Let's just test it. Decompression is much quicker. Hey, they're the same. Okay. Let's see if this works in 40-column mode. And it totally does. Patterns works. If you've watched any of my Twitch streams, I begin, wow, it's running fast. I begin them with the video that I captured of this program. When I briefly took a debate class in high school, the guy who ran the debate class had a Mac, and he had this screensaver on it. I loved this screensaver. And I was like, I want to write a screensaver that looks like that screensaver, and it'll even be in color. That Mac was not in color; it was like a classic Mac, black and white. And yeah, so I wrote this program to be like that program, and it's not quite like that program, but it's about as close as I wanted to bother getting. You can also turn off the trails. Yeah. And then as the colors change, everything changes, and it's very psychedelic. Let's turn the trails back on. Notice the font's a little weird. I think that may have something to do with. I think that I may have needed to get some font files. This was compiled with Turbo C from Borland, and I think there might have been some Borland font files that I needed to include in order for the font to look right. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Pig Gaelic. It's a program I wrote that I was fascinated with the idea of how Pig Latin worked, but I wanted to make something that was another language. So this is Pig Gaelic. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to need to copy a link onto the C drive eventually, so let's make a link directory for it. Xcopy is not here. Oh, we're running out of space. There we go. There we go. And now we have some documentation. So we can run okay, and then we can list it. Fuels EO, Sjold Teva, the Terminal Program, the Operations Manual, the Registration Form, Bovicine Astereo, Thosfil, configuration, translation, ability. I believe what it does is it takes vowels and it includes like Y and F and a few other things, I think, as vowels. Maybe not F, W, Y and W for sure, and maybe some other things also as vowels. And it just replaces each vowel with the next vowel as it goes along. Yeah, I think that's what it does. And it even allows you to translate it back. Okay, so that's that. What else? Let's see, Slug. Slug is a program that I got working, but because it normally clears the screen by changing the video mode, we have to clear the screen ourselves. And Slug still stays there in the corner. Giant Space Slug. This is my version of Giant Space Slug because I didn't want to pay for anybody else's version of Giant Space Slug, and it seemed pretty easy to write. Zero's kind of slow. Let's try level 1. So every time you eat something, you get longer, and you have to avoid eating your tail. That's how Giant Space Slug works. Yep. Oh, I didn't turn fast enough. Yeah, I want to play again. Okay, level 1. Sure. Notice the color of the prompt stays in the corner there. I should be careful about going to the corner. I might run into the invisible text and die. I've noticed that without the screen being completely cleared properly first, you can run into invisible text and die. Oh, okay. I think we're all right. Ooh, I almost messed up there. That one's going to be hard. Can I get there? Okay. Oh no, right next to the border, huh? Oh no, I hit the wrong key. Okay, well, that's enough of Giant Space Slug. Oh, and zip to exe I can show you. So and I believe that's something that came with PKZip. I'm not sure. But so we've got, if we copy the zip file that we have to here, then we can use zip to exe to make it into a self-extracting zip file. Yeah, it is part of the same software from PKWare. And then if we make a directory called ghosts, we can run it, and it inflates the file in this directory. Hurrah! Okay, so yeah, that's that. It's time to run link and see if we can talk to a modem. If we can talk to a modem, maybe we can talk to an embedded system that has a serial connector. So here's link, and it turns out it runs in 30 line mode. Now I'm going to crop off the bottom lines because it doesn't use them. Time to go hook up a modem and see if we can talk to it. I have here an Intel external fax modem, the easy way to connect your PC to a world of information. What date is this? 1993. I used this modem for a number of years. Oh my goodness, it has exactly the right cord. It has a 25-pin to 9-pin connector on it. I'm just going to plug it right into the serial port on the back of this thing.
I'm also going to need to plug it into power, though. All right. Power getting plugged in. We have lights on the front of the modem. Excellent. Let's see if DOS knows about the COM ports. Plus, oh my goodness, it's already signaling back. AT. There it is. I can make it make some noise. Nope. What is it? ATA. There we go. Yay! Okay, and I think a lot of these things run at 9600, so let's just test 9600 baud just to be sure. I don't have this hooked up to a phone line. I don't even have a phone line anymore. What is it? Alt-Z for help? There we go. So we need to change options. There we go. Enter the configuration screen. Change the baud to 9600. Save and edit. Yep. We're at 9600 baud, and it's talking to the modem. Yay! So in the future, I will probably use this. I'm going to try and use this for talking to embedded systems that have a serial header. I understand that a lot of them run at different voltages. If I try and hook like this directly up to them, it may overdrive them and break them. So I may need some kind of attenuation in the middle. But the thing I bought does the thing I bought it for. So yay! Bye for now.
Just to let you know, this video is over soon. So rub your eyes and stretch your thighs and sing in tune. It's time to find another kind of video, for this one is nearly done, you know.